I died when I was 16, and I didn't go to the hospital. There was no physical trauma. I was instead sitting in the bed of my friend's house at 16 years old, watching my life dissolve before my very eyes. The version of myself that walked into that room before that night had been masking and being a version of her who she really wasn't, perfecting her every movement, her actions, her tone to be somebody she wasn't. It was May 19th, 2019, when my friends and I decided to take our first psychedelic experience. And as a teenager, I actually wasn't very rebellious. I had inner freedom to do pretty much whatever I wanted. So whenever I did make choices, I made very logical ones. And this seemed like a very logical choice to me because for me, consciousness and expansion was something that I was always deeply interested in. And of course, at 16 years old, when you get access to this, it was something that I decided to try. And that afternoon, I wouldn't even classify it as a trip. I would classify it as a funeral for a past version of myself that literally died. All of us are programmed by childhood to be somebody that we're not, through television, our own parents and our family, to act a certain way, to go into a certain career, to live a certain persona in order to be liked. And most importantly, not only to be liked, but in order to be kept safe. Because if we are not liked, then therefore we can be abandoned, we can be rejected. And that is one of the most scary things for our biological body to experience, to be rejected, because our body sees rejection as literal death. That if we are rejected from our tribe, we may as very well be dead. Because if we're rejected from our tribe, how are we going to survive in this world? How will we be able to eat? These are real biological responses that we have within our body to keep up a certain persona, put on certain masks of ourselves, to be somebody that we're not in order to protect some part of ourselves. I spent most of my life waking up an hour and a half before going to school, putting on a face of makeup, curling or straightening my hair, and watching every single word that I spoke to anybody else. Because I was afraid that if I didn't put up this certain persona, then I wouldn't have friends, then nobody would like me. When in reality, looking back, I can quite literally see that version of myself repelling people because I was stiff walking to a room. My hands would sweat. I couldn't give eye contact to anyone. And not giving eye contact literally meant that I was afraid of being seen because I didn't know who I was. On this journey at 16 years old, I was in the bed. I remember feeling like I was sinking into a void of nothingness. But within my heart, I deeply felt the inner love I had for myself and the world. If you've ever done psychedelics, you can probably remember this feeling. And as I was there feeling that inner love within myself, I actually ended up looking in the mirror. And as I looked in the mirror, I saw myself for who I was. Behind the mask, behind the facade, behind this physical body that I had. And I saw myself for someone who was deeply loving, who deeply cared, who had a purpose and a mission for this world that was so much bigger than caring about what other people were thinking so much. Even if you don't notice it, subconsciously, if you're afraid to speak in front of people, in a boardroom, at work, or in front of your friends, you have a fear of being rejected in some sort of way. If we're afraid of speaking in front of an audience, we are afraid of being who we actually are and being rejected. Whether we like that or not, subconsciously, there is a part of our body and our nervous system that makes our hands sweat, that makes us feel like we can't be ourselves, that being ourselves is scary. Because maybe when you were a child, there might have been a time when someone told you, either directly or indirectly, that being who you actually were wasn't enough. and that you needed to be some other version of yourself in order to be loved and cherished. And this can show up as social or performance anxiety in adults, because when we are performing and being somebody that we're not, we are scared to actually just be who we are, because so many of us don't even know who we are because we've been taught to be someone we're not. After I was staring myself in the mirror, feeling so deeply, innately connected with that inner love that I had for myself, I decided from that day forward to drop the facade completely. And that meant not wearing any makeup, not doing my hair anymore, relaxing my appearance altogether, and instead focusing my energy within on what specific actions I wanted to take based on a place of who I actually was, not from a place of trying to be liked or trying to be perceived in a certain way as a form of people pleasing, but instead focusing on who I actually was. For the next year, I literally meditated every single day. I read every spiritual book that I could put my hands on. Within this time, someone recommended me a book called Many Lives, Many Masters by Michael Weiss. And immediately while I was reading this book, I felt a deep excitement within every single level of my body. And I knew immediately that I needed to pursue this in some sort of way. I needed to learn more. This book was actually about past life regression and hypnotherapy. I ended up researching where I could possibly learn how to do this. And that's when I figured out that a hypnotherapy school was literally 10 minutes from where I was living at the time. I signed up, learned how to be a hypnotherapist, opened up my own private practice, and started living in alignment with who I actually was. When we spend our entire life being someone who we're not, we are quite literally doing the world a disservice. And not only doing the world a disservice, but doing ourselves a disservice by inhibiting all of the magic that we have within us, all of that inner creativity and purpose and mission that we have within us that is behind all of these masks, behind all the barriers that we put up and that we call social or performance anxiety, when in reality it's just a fear of not knowing who we are. Being who we are is our greatest gift to the world and to yourself and to your inner child. And after I metaphorically died, the healing didn't stop there for me. When I learned hypnotherapy myself, I started to use it on myself to uncover all of the masks that were installed onto me ever since I was a child, all of the inner fears and guilt and shame, the fear of expression, of if I expressed myself too much, maybe I would get hurt. Once I dismantled all of that inner programming that had been living within my body. And that is when the fun part starts, when we connect that inner creativity of who we actually are and start living as that new identity from a space of mission and inner purpose rather than a state of fear of being who you actually are. My name is Antonia. Thank you so much for watching. And if you're ready to release your performance or social anxiety, I will have a link to book a free discovery call in the description box below. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.